For the word of God is quick and powerful, and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. That's why they don't want the Bible read in church. The word of God is powerful and will not return unto him void. So what do? The Satanists, really, I'm afraid you'd have to call them. And I'm sorry to have to use it at the time of the year when they are celebrating Santa. But Santa is Satan. Understand this. That's why you get presents for being good. The exact opposite of what the Bible will teach. You get presents by grace. Your conduct is not relevant. Your submission is relevant. Your faith. But that's why they won't read from the Bible. The Bible doesn't even exist in the church, because you don't get that power from any other version. You have to read the Bible. And in different countries, the Bible with its equal authority, there will be one. And I base that only on Italy because I know of that situation. Although, as I do say sometimes, you have to use a little bit of caution in the Italian matter, because Italy being a place where Rome is cited, the translator, I think, might have been coerced into the inclusion of the word globe or globo in place of circle. That's the only objection I have with the Italian equivalent. But funnily enough, I do have another issue, because the translator, Giovanni Diodati, changed the names of some of the birds when the birds are brought up, whether they're bitterns or owls or different types of birds that are mentioned in descriptive passages of the Bible. So I don't know why the names are different. And it occurred to me earlier today that perhaps if I understood what each bird signified, there may be something hidden in that also. So I always say there is, obviously there will be a perfect Bible in your country, but you do need to remember that there's only one gold standard. And I have to say that is the authorized version. It must exist, you see. There has to be, because it's a legal document. There has to be one. Well, I know this as a translator. If you're translating anything contractual, there will be a clause that will specify that the original document is the one that holds authority. I know people might say, well, it wasn't the original document, but the way that I see it, it was, in fact, the original document. So there you go. It won't be read in church. They won't read, I think it's chapter 10 of Deuteronomy with all the curses that will fall upon Israel if they don't walk as they're supposed to walk, as they're ordered, as in accordance with the law, and they turn to other gods. And this is the issue always. They're turning to other gods. It's not just the New Age movement. You can give the God the name that you want to. My New Age friend used to call him Source. The name is Satan, actually. And because Satan is the lord of that realm. But there are many names of different gods that you can find, and it was so in the ancient world. And my New Age friend was very cross with me because I simply mentioned something that I'd been reading about recently, which was the North American Indian practice among some tribes of sacrificing, having sacrificial victims and using sacrifice and torture as part of their religious rites to worship their gods. And they would sacrifice and torture members of their own tribe, children also. But if they could find other suitable victims, then they would take them. It was part of their religious culture. And this fellow responded, I hadn't realized that the issue was so incendiary. I'd read about it in several different contexts. I think it's an established fact, but he retorted that, because of my belief in conspiracy, I should understand that such reports were just mere fabrication to support the colonialization and the theft of land, of the Indian land. And he proceeded to fire several expletives in my direction. I was quite taken aback. I hadn't really made any kind of assertion. I just took that as read. And, I've looked into it and I understand that there might be some contention about such a matter. But, my ancestor didn't go to America to steal land and such and so on and so forth. They went to buy land. The settlers wanted to buy land from the Indians, and deals were struck. The Indian view of land is very different to our view of land. As I have understood, I've read, I've heard, and it stands to reason. But nonetheless, the settlers tried to enforce contracts which were based on biblical law, because our ancestors went to America taking the Holy Bible as their basis for establishing the law. And this was the process of Christianization, which the New Age people hate, because they see it as usurping the natural rights of those people. But the fact of the matter is that all people, all tribes around the world at some point practice things such as sacrifice and torture, things like that. I'm sorry to have to say. It's the inevitable corollary, really, of basing a religion on something fictitious other than the one true God. Because you have to create the thing that you worship in your own mind and heart. And so there will be so much wickedness within it. This is the problem of inventing your own gods. People do it quite often. And so, sometimes they'll give the god a name, and if that name acquires any currency and people start to follow it, then wickedness will ensue, because the power is no longer taken from or given or under the authority of Jesus Christ. You can't be doing those sorts of things. They're idolatry. They're the real wickedness of the Bible. It's not about having a couple of beers or fancying a woman who's not your wife, or whatever you thought might be the problem. I'm sure nobody thinks that, but some, in the church, they seem to think that sort of stuff, to be perfectly honest. And it's so depressing to hear the service in the church. Just a couple of references to the book of Luke, the 2nd chapter, of course, because they're all focused on Christmas and Santa and presents. And there was boasting from the front that they'd donated £3,500 to charity in the year. Well, when you think that the chief executive of the local smallish charity one of the ones that they support, is on 80,000 or 85,000, and then there'll be his deputy, and then the other staff and the offices and all the rest of it. It's a drop in the ocean. And many churches will be following suit and giving their money to basically keeping these organizations afloat. And they are corrupt organizations, actually. The more you dig, the more dirt you will find, I'm afraid, on these charities involved in all sorts of wickedness and supported by your local church. It's horrible to see it. Can somebody go into that pulpit and read from the Bible? Will anybody listen? Perhaps not. They'll be offended because the Bible offends people. That's why they don't read it. It's offensive to their own ears because they can't help but see themselves in the things that are being said, as is true of every man, actually, I think. The Bible does accuse. So that's why it's so valuable.